Right now, this video showing a young man here, being forced to strip down and endure a whipping in broad daylight on the streets of Newark has gone viral, and many questions are being asked as to why didn't anyone do anything about it, and why is this a reality in 21st century America? And next, Wayne LaPierre, that's right, he of the NRA, is out with an editorial that, I'm sorry, is, from my take, dripping with racism. And to all the gun owners out there, I have a question for you. When is enough enough? When are you going to stop letting this guy speak for you? And later, can't make this up, you're looking right here. That's right, Jeannie. This is the Pope taking BP, the late Pope John Paul II here, in a recently resurfaced video. I'm sorry, I just can't get enough of that. We're going to show you more on that as well. We have a full show here, and we begin this evening, everyone, with some breaking news. Good evening, I'm Richard French, and welcome to RFL. Thanks for joining us this Thursday night, February 14th. Two big stories tonight. We're going to get to the Hagel nomination that is not as much of a sure thing as we thought as recently as last night in a moment. But we begin with that breaking news that I mentioned, and it comes out of the Garden State. Frank Lautenberg, the senior senator from New Jersey, well, he is retiring, and he will not be seeking re-election in 2014. This may not be a surprise here because the near 89-year-old lawmaker is the last remaining veteran of World War II in the Senate, but the five-time elected senator had been resisting retiring for a long time for many reasons, including one, for the lack of love for his probable successor. He came back to the chamber just 2 years after leaving in 2001 as a last-minute replacement for then-Senator Robert Torricelli, who was facing corruption charges. Lautenberg, who's been in the Senate since, was facing a more difficult re-election bid this year. And again, it wasn't coming from the other party necessarily, it's coming from within his own. Popular Mayor Cory Booker of Newark had already announced his intentions to run and possibly challenge Lautenberg to a primary without even waiting for Lautenberg to say his plans for the next election. And for more on this, I want to bring in our senior political correspondent, Andrew Whitman. And Andrew, you got one of the last conversations with Senator Lautenberg before he announced here that he's not running again. It was an open question, but didn't seem, at least as recently as the State of the Union, that he was ready to commit one way or the other.
At the time I spoke with him, I actually got the impression that he was going to seek re-election in 2014. But then today we got this statement from the senator's office, quote, "I will not seek re-election in 2014. While I may not be seeking re-election, there is plenty of work to do before the end of this term. I'm going to keep fighting as hard as ever for the people of New Jersey in the U.S. Senate." Much of that sentiment echoed in what Lautenberg told me on Tuesday when I asked him point blank if he intended to seek another term in the Senate. Have you decided if you're going to seek re-election in 2014?
I've decided that there's work to be done, that I want to do it. And as to whether or not I continue, we'll make a decision because I'm going to continue to work no matter what hat I'm wearing.
As for Cory Booker, I asked Lautenberg about the impact of his presence in the race. Would you ever consider running for another term because he's in the race, or not running for another term because he's in the race?
No, he wouldn't influence that. And if he wants to run for it, he has every right to do so.
But despite Lautenberg's disregard for Booker as a potential primary challenger, the senator still took the time to take a few shots at the Newark mayor.
People said that I'm annoyed by his disrespect. That, to me, it's kind of an integral part of politics. So he doesn't have to treat me with respect. I'd appreciate it if he didn't create this kind of an environment, took care of the city of Newark. He and I both work in the same city. The difference is that my attendance at work in Newark is far better than his.
Despite that apparent lack of love between the two, about 25 minutes ago, Mayor Booker issued a statement following the Lautenberg announcement. Quote, "Senator Frank Lautenberg has been a champion for the people of New Jersey for decades, and his legacy of service will improve the lives of all Americans for years to come." Adding, "Senator Lautenberg has been a strong model of leadership and service to me since before I even considered entering elected office. I look forward to continuing to work with him for the remainder of his term in the Senate and for many years to come." Rich, that's assuming that Senator Lautenberg wants to work with Cory Booker.
Well, that under the heading of too little, too late.
Right.
Please, this was an open secret. I went down a few weeks back with basically every lawmaker seemingly in New Jersey down to Washington on the state level, and there was two open questions. One was what was going to happen with Senator Menendez and his ongoing ethics questions, and then secondly, what happened if they got Booker and Lautenberg in the same room, which was a distinct possibility. It didn't happen, but everybody knows. Democrats are saying, what was Booker doing? Fine, he had to make a decision about governor, but he didn't have to pile on day of and go after the senator. He didn't give the senator a chance to leave on his own terms. And every Democrat knows Lautenberg can't stand Booker. And I think it came across in your conversation.
And you wonder if Booker had just waited 2 months, because he formed his exploratory committee for the Senate back in December. If he had just waited 2 months, might Lautenberg have still come to the same conclusion, deciding not to run for re-election? And could Booker have saved himself this little embarrassment as well as the fighting between the two of them?
All right, let's bring in our panel on this. Jeannie Zaino, Dean and Professor of Political Science at Ona College, and Richard Brodsky, former New York Assemblyman, Senior Fellow Demos Professor at NYU. You have probably read a lot of his work, both at the Huffington Post, Albany Times Union, et cetera. Richard, I ask you, there's no perfect way to have graceful exits and to come in and out, primaries or direct challenges. I get that. But there is a way to and not to do to allow some respect for somebody. This is a decorated veteran here. This is a guy who served. He helped out New Jersey when they needed it for the Democratic Party. Booker didn't handle this the right way.
In the cold reality of political calculus, there are two models here. One, you declare early on the theory that if he was considering leaving, it might push him over the edge. You don't know if that worked or not. The other model is you open your mouth too early and you look ungracious and greedy, and that comes back to haunt you. I don't think this is a seat that Cory Booker is going to inherit. I think there are likely to be other significant, serious candidates, and this little push that Booker tried to give Lautenberg is probably not going to help him. Whether it decides the race or not is to be seen.
You know, Jeannie, on that trip down to D.C., Frank Pallone was there, and there's members of the New Jersey congressional delegation who always wanted this job here. But Pallone took great pains to say, listen, I respect Frank Lautenberg enough to let him make a decision before I'd even volunteer my name. Of course, it's something I'm interested in, but if Frank Lautenberg chooses to run, I wouldn't presume to run in a primary against him. They're all laying the groundwork here. But with the national popularity of Cory Booker, maybe not within the state here in certain cities, including his own, do these guys have a snowball's chance, you think? Somebody else take Cory Booker down before the primary is all said and done?
No, I think absolutely somebody has a chance. I agree with Richard on that. I think it's going to be a hard-fought primary. Yeah, Cory Booker does have a national reputation, perhaps more than some of the other contenders for this position. That said, you're running in the state of New Jersey. Support in that state matters, and support amongst your party matters an awful lot to win that primary. So I think it's going to be a hard-fought battle. You know, he ends up looking like, an aggressive young buck trying to, push out a respected veteran who came back to support the party. It's never a good position to be in unless, of course, and we don't know the backstory on this, he calculated that, listen, he needed to do this because he was going to be in the same position either way. It's hard to tell at this point, but I think it's going to be a hard-fought battle, and I don't think it's Cory Booker's to inherit at all. I think it is going to be a battle for the New Jersey Senate.
And I'm curious, Andrew, I don't think Frank Lautenberg goes quietly into the good night. He never has, and I think now that he knows he's going to be leaving, he certainly isn't going to be quiet. He's got a lot of money, too. So if he wants to get involved in the process, certainly he's got the wherewithal to do it. What are some of the other names in New Jersey, with the exception, in addition, I should say, to Frank Pallone?
Well, I've heard Bill Pascrell's name mentioned once or twice, and we'll have to see if any other names come out, but those seem to be the two, Pallone and Pascrell.
Andrews also another one?
I think there's less of a chance of that, only because the South Jersey, North Jersey split.
Yeah.
You'd be looking, I think, at somebody from either North or Central Jersey. You mentioned Lautenberg's money. He has a lot of personal money, but very little in his campaign coffers, so there's not a lot there. I suspect if he's going to get involved in the primary fight, he'll do it as much as he can behind the scenes so as to go out and not be seen as being overly...
Well, I don't think so. I think he is... I have met few openly bitter politicians as much as Frank Pallone. The event I went to, he took all his time, and people were going, oh, eviscerating Booker on the stage here. And that wasn't, you know, in the back room here. That was right on the dais. He's going to stick it to Booker if he gets a chance.
The one impact of the Lautenberg-Booker split that we're not seeing, it doesn't seem to be helping, or it doesn't appear to be helping any Republican contenders for this seat. So it's still very likely to be Democratic after the election in 2014.
Tom Kaine said he'd like to have the job. We saw how that worked last time, but we will see. All right, we take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to switch gears. We'll stay in New Jersey and actually in the city of Newark that both Frank Lautenberg and Cory Booker spoke of today. But there is a piece of video that many of you may have seen. It's gone viral. It shows a young man literally stripped down and being beaten on the streets of Newark in broad daylight. And it's raised a whole host of questions. The Mayor Booker also spoke out about some of these as well. We'll hear from him. We'll show you the pictures. We'll bring in our guests as well. Talk about something that, if it doesn't shock the conscience, it really ought to.